Educated Economist here. So thought I'd do, this is probably going to be a fairly short video, but just wanted to come out and talk a little bit about the lumber industry because I know how much you guys know. I know how much you guys love it when I talk about the lumber industry and talk about some of the things that I am seeing from the boots on the ground perspective. Considering that I work at a lumber yard, I do retail sales for a living. Now, something very interesting is starting to take place within the lumber industry, and that is mill curtailments. And now it's been happening for some time, and I thought it was just taking place here in Oregon or maybe like taking place in Montana and up in the British Columbia area, but it's starting to become more prevalent. And I knew if this took place over a long enough period of time that it would start showing itself in the broader economy. And I believe that is starting to take place right now. So really, lumber is an excellent, excellent commodity to watch for the warning signs that are coming to the economy, considering that lumber is probably the number one commodity when it comes to industry. I mean, you think about it, like how much stuff is shipped, packaged, and used beyond just that of building a house, but all the things that lumber is used for beyond that, right? Lumber is a major commodity here in the United States, along with the sheet goods like plywood and, all the rest of the agricultural products that may be available. But lumber is definitely one to keep an eye on for this reason. It's an industrial commodity. Now, a lot of you know that I get a lumber letter that kind of gives me an idea of what's going on at the different mills across, or just different kind of, not only just the mills, but then different distributors and stuff like that. But it has something very interesting to say. Now, this is something that we have been talking about for quite some time. And here in the western part of the United States, it's starting to become more prevalent. And that goes like this: mills are still producing and order files are 1 to 2 weeks out, meaning that like if you ordered something, you might get it in a week or two. Toxic curtailments abound from most mills, right? Toxic curtailments, like they haven't done it quite yet, or a lot of them, but some of them are starting that up, right? Because we've been doing reports on that. But now the talks of it are, running prevalent throughout the mills. We are also monitoring the potential of a strike from Canadian Border Services, along with ongoing rail strike threats. Both of these services are considered essential, right? So think about like that from the British Columbia area. Like this is a major importer of softwoods into the United States. Like 20% of the softwoods that are consumed here in the United States come out of Canada, and better than 50% of that comes out of the British Columbia area. So the things that happen up there are very sensitive to the lumber market. So those of you who are watching, wondering what's going to go on with lumber prices, these are the warning signs, right? So again, things that happen in the British Columbia area are very sensitive to the lumber market, right? And we have to remember there's a bunch of mills, or not just mill closures taking place up there, but there's fires, right? There's wildfires running rampant around up there as well. Okay, going on with this. The availability, right? Another warning sign. Okay, so again, I work at a lumber yard. When I call up and I look for lumber, usually I'm looking for like an entire unit of lumber, or, in some cases I might be looking, in like the case of beams, some bigger lumber, I might be asking for a piece of it or two. However, almost always when I call up to the vendors, when I call up to the wholesalers up there, everything's available, right? When I call up and things are not available, or things are a week or two out, that lets me know that there is a limited inventory out there, and that the mill curtailments that have been taking place with not only here in Oregon, but, around, is starting to show its signs with that inventory tightening up. Now, I've been calling this out for a while, but it hasn't been significant, right? So like a lot of times when I see stuff like that and I report on it, I got to make sure that, this is not something that is like such a warning that there's like no lumber out there at all. Like I don't want people to feel that way, but it is coming up in short supply. Like it's not available or as frequently available as it once was, and that is the sign itself, right? That it's not quite there. And now I'm starting to see it in the reports now. Listen. Listen to me. Okay, listen. the numbers for both species. Talking about Doug fir and larch, right? The number for both species remains at similar levels. Straight 16 offerings in any given width are getting more and more difficult to find. See, again, the same thing that I had been reporting. Again, like this thing doesn't have anything to do with me. This guy doesn't have any, he doesn't know me at all, right? 2x10 remains a hit or miss in these species. Right? 2x4 seeing some corrections currently at print report more of a drop than it was expected. But see, so that's where I guess I was getting at. Let me kind of clear that up a little bit. So the longer lengths, like the 16s and longer, they're not nearly as high demand as the shorter lengths, especially when it comes down to the stud lengths. So 2x4, 2x6 stud length, which is like the 8-footers, and then you have something that are called pre-cuts, which can be like a 92 and 5/8 stud or a 104 and 5/8 stud. Those are the pretty popular lengths, but there's other lengths as well. But those are the stud lengths, and then you have some random lengths, which are the plate stock, which you would use for, you know, your top and bottom plates. Generally, most carpenters want to use longer lengths for that kind of thing, but interior walls most of the time are going to be like 14-footers and maybe even shorter than that. So the longer lengths on those aren't nearly as popular, so the mills don't run as many. Same thing with the 2x8s and 2x10s and stuff like that. The mills just don't run as much of what is not as popular. So what is popular is what the mills run, leaving the other ones behind, and that's where the gap in the inventory starts to come in. This is the warning signs of that, right? I mean, it's just like, I've been trying to call it out, but I couldn't find anywhere, and even this is anecdotal. Like, I can't show you where I get this from because it's proprietary, but for the most part, I mean, it's not that much. I mean, this goes out across the entire nation. All kinds of people have access to it, and it's not where a lot of people think it's from. So, let's see here. I thought, I think that was kind of like the most important part of the information. I don't think I had anything else that I want. Oh, here we go. Southern pine. Okay. Talking about the southern pine market. Again, talking about the available lengths. Those, the 2x8 was relatively quiet and slipped just 5. Okay. Wides and 2x10, 2x12 continued to be underproduced as wet conditions, especially in the West, keep mills pulling narrows for the time being, right? So all they're doing is just running the ones that are most popular. So even again, in the South, they're talking about this very thing. Like we're experiencing in the West, these guys are experiencing it in the South. Coupled with more silent curtailments. These are the ones that are not even coming from the mills. They aren't even announcing it. These are just quietly just cutting back on production. These will continue to tighten up the market to keep upward pressure on, Anyway, I think that's probably the bulk of the information there. Inside of that, I wanted to share it with you. Now, down in the description, you're going to find links to a couple of articles talking about the pulp industry. This, again, is another warning sign, right? And it's not just here in the United States. And what really triggered like me to go ahead and make this video is when I found the article coming out of, I believe it was India, talking about the global pulp demand and how that's starting to increase. It's not necessarily, I believe, the demand for pulp, but the availability of pulp is diminishing. And now if you have mills in curtailment, the byproduct of those mills is the pulp itself. And if that pulp is not being produced, now you have an upward demand on it. Think about all the packaging. Think about all the stuff that is needed for paper products. And I mean, I can't even begin to wrap my head around how intense this really is. And so if you have a major pullback in the amount of lumber that is being produced, which we have been seeing it for quite some time. And again, it's not quite the same, but it's very similar in a sense to what was taking place in 2019. And yes, back then we were having the same issues with pulp production and the demand for pulp. Now, did it grow so prevalent that it started creating issues where people were talking about it on the news? Not exactly, but it was, legit, seriously enough to affect the idea that I was finding it within the articles that I was reading and some of the, issues that were happening within the demand for what they refer to as fiber, right? Because they don't really look at it the same way as like a lot of people do. They call it fiber. Fiber is like the trees turn into pulp. or to the dust, the pulp or whatever that eventually becomes part of the paper products. Anyway, anyhow, that part is less consequential to the whole thing. What is important to remember, though, is this whole situation that has taken place. It is a warning sign within itself, right? You don't have to give reasons to it. You don't have to go and do all the kinds of blame and all the other things that a lot of people are going to go to. All you really have to do is just think about this for just a minute in that what is occurring, right? Less trees are getting cut, regardless of the situation. Here in Oregon, they got all kinds of reasons and laws and changes that, happen with regulations making the logs more expensive, so the mills simply cannot operate, and so they start to shut down. Montana, Washington, British Columbia, Oregon, and I'm sure there was probably many more that, I haven't been able to, necessarily find the news articles to, but probably exist throughout the nation that are experiencing this very same thing. This slowdown in mill production is going to put a slowdown in the byproduct, which is, right, the sawdust, that pulp being the byproduct going to these pulp mills that has now gotten expensive because of the higher demand for it, seeing that less is being produced, right? Will now start shutting pulp production or pulp mills down, curtailing pulp development, or paper production. Woo, man, okay. And you can see how this is starting to escalate, right? And eventually it'll start finding its way into the economy, and we will notice this, and we will know that this was coming from this video that we are watching today. Okay, 11 minutes into it. Thank you everybody for being here. We got 196 people watching with 51 likes. Second live for the day. Yeah, Freddie's got a bunch of buddies hanging out, spending the night. We're doing a birthday party for him tomorrow. His birthday was last week, but we were in Orlando, so we couldn't do the party over the weekend, so we decided to throw it this weekend, which is better anyway because more kids were available for it anyhow. And so anyway, they're in there raising hell, and I thought I'd come out here and make a video instead. So let's talk about pulp production and mills and all that. Question: okay, do you think that it matters how much the U.S. government prints, or does it even matter because we are the world reserve currency? Of course it matters, but to what extent does it really matter? I remember when we went from $850 billion on the Fed's balance sheet to a little over $4.5 trillion, and went to 4.7 something. I remember that was intense. I mean, people said deficits don't matter and all that. I was like, bull, this is going to be such a bad deal. It's going to be horrible. It's going to destroy the nation. The dollar is never going to make it through this. This is a bad deal, right? Now, I said that about quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And it was an insane amount. I mean, they quadrupled the balance sheet. It was more money printed then than any time in history, and all the other stuff that we've heard just recently. And right now, I mean, people would beg to be back at 4.5 trillion. Right? They would be like, "Oh man, if the Fed could ever get back to 4.5 trillion, that would just be amazing." So I don't know. Does it matter? It doesn't really seem to. Right? It will when it doesn't matter until it does. How about that? It doesn't matter until it does, and someday it will. But at this point, it doesn't. But it should. I don't know how else to say it. All right, $4.99. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let's go check that one out. We got LaRoca. Thank you for the $4.99, LaRoca. Okay. What would it mean for the U.S. dollar once the petrodollar agreement with the Saudi ends this Sunday, June 9th, after 50 years? I don't think it's going to mean much. Now, yeah, it's going to mean a lot in the sense that there's going to be a huge shift in the amount of deals that are going to be done in dollars, considering that other nations won't necessarily have to do the deal in dollars in order to acquire them to buy the oil, because the oil is the number one commodity for all nations. All nations need to buy oil or deal in oil. And if all oil is dealt in dollars, then that kind of gives the dollar this unique power to be the world reserve currency if all deals are done or all oil deals are done in dollars. That's kind of the idea behind it. And I do agree with that for the rise of the dollar to get to the position it is. However, even if nations were to do deals outside of the dollar, doing oil deals or whatever, there's not enough. There's just not enough. There's not enough of these other currencies to fulfill the transactions, right? See, you have to be able to have enough of the currency out there. You have to, like, that's the problem with gold. See, people are like, well, let's go back to a gold standard. Ha, ha, ha. Okay. You can't go back to a gold standard because if you go back to a gold standard, you will deny the people the ability to do transactions. Or you have to take less payment for the transaction you want to do because everybody's going to hoard gold and it'll deny everybody else the ability to do transactions. Now, whether that's a good or bad thing, I don't know. It's up to you to decide. I don't think it's a good or bad thing. It is. It's just how it works. And I get it. Like, I mean, I understand that part of it. However, what we do have is a fiat currency system which does provide all the liquidity that anybody could ever possibly dream of in order to do all the transactions that anybody could ever possibly dream of, right? So now with the ability to print and have and do as many transactions as you can possibly do, how do you replace that? Right? How do you replace that? How do you replace the ability to do as many transactions as you want to do? See, if you do it with a foreign currency like the yuan or rubles or rupees or any other currency out there, there's a limited amount of them. And the reason why there's a limited amount of them is because you have to be able to trust them in their debt issuance. That's the biggest problem, is because most people don't want to trust any nation out there to pay their debts, except the United States. They're the only one that everybody trusts. So when the United States issues out a U.S. Treasury, people know that thing is going to get paid. Zero chance of default. No way will it not pay, right? It will guarantee. So with that kind of feeling and understanding and belief behind it, no other nation can provide that. Just that feeling of being, yes, I will get paid. Now, some people might trust China, some people might trust Russia, some people might trust India, some people might trust some other nations out there, but they won't trust them like they trust the United States. Don't know why, it just is. So, with that confidence and with that trust, the United States has been able to do something that no other nation has been able to do, and that is provide the world with that safe and liquid asset, that U.S. Treasury. Now, how do they do that? By going into a stupid amount of debt. Ridiculous amounts of it. Spend it on all the stupid things that you could ever possibly be stupid in your entire life, and they will spend it on it. Why? Because it doesn't matter what they spend it on so long as they produce the debt, the U.S. Treasuries. Why? Because the world wants it. They use that to do the transactions. If they didn't have it, they wouldn't be doing transactions. It would be a limited amount of them. So this is the reason why the dollar is there. Right? It's not because somebody chose it, it's because we wanted to do transactions. Now, whether it was my fault and your fault, I doubt that. Right? However, it is our fault for continuing to use it. Right? We didn't create it. It kind of manifested itself. We don't have to use it. We're choosing to. We blame other people for it, but we don't do anything about it. So this is the situation we're now in. So I don't look at like some other nation being able to do what the dollar is doing. No other nation is going to be willing to go into debt as deep as the United States has gone, period, right? They're not going to do it. And there's no other nation that is going to be going into as much deficit spending as the United States has done in order to provide the world with those dollars, in order to back that safe and liquid asset. See, no other nation is doing what the dollar has done. Like, go ahead, do deals, do whatever deals you want. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, eventually it will matter, but right now it doesn't matter. There is like, they could do all the deals in the world they want. There's not enough of it out there that compares to the dollar for the dollar continue to do the amount of transactions, or to knock the dollar away from doing the amount of transactions it does. That's it. Like, I don't like it that way. I really don't. I mean, I'm not like, hey, this is such a great deal. We have figured it out. Screw everybody else. We're the smartest ones in the world. Ha ha ha. No, I don't think that at all. I don't think this is a good deal. But I recognize it for what it is. I do understand how it's gotten this way. And I don't believe that it'll last forever. But at this point, I don't see a runner up. There is nobody else out there. Like, even if you wanted to, like, even if I wanted to say, hey, man, I'm going to put my money on the second place, I can't find it. Where's second? You are so far away, second place, that I'm not, never mind. Like, I'm not even interested. All right. New currencies coming out of Thailand, I believe it is the Kupi. All right, yeah, I've been tripping on how late it is, still late there, for months now. Oh yeah, it'll be, like, you guys hang out with me. I don't even know what time is it. It's like 8 o'clock, 8:30, something like that. 9 o'clock, oh yeah. It'll be 9:30, probably almost 10 o'clock. When it gets here at the end of the month, at the end of June, when we start getting towards the summer solstice, you will find where it'll be light until 10, maybe even 10:30, like you'll see, like, it'll still be kind of light. And then the sun will start coming up around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, it's like it's just light all the time. And then you get up to Alaska, like all-nighter, it's just daylight all the time up there. Yeah, that's where he's at now. Already missed the guy. Hasn't even been 24 hours. Oh, I guess it's been a little over 24 hours. Okay, not even BRICS, not even real assets. The dollar is backed by nothing. Maybe for at least NATO, they will remain the reserve currency. It's just, there's just nothing else. Like, there could be all kinds of currencies that exist, and it doesn't matter if they exist or not. The amount of dollars that are out there doing transactions is what matters, because if you're not doing transactions, you're in depression. That's all there is to it. Like, you need to go to work, right? You think about it. Every minute of every day is a transaction. Whether you're sitting there at work working an hourly wage, that's working a transaction. Okay? If you're making, you're at the coffee shop buying a cup of coffee, that's a transaction. Everything's a transaction constantly, all day long. And if there's not the currency out there to do the transactions with it, you're done, man. You're not working, right? It's all over. And that's where, like, a lot of people, I think, misunderstand how a gold like a gold currency, a gold standard, a true, like, not that there was ever truly a true gold standard, but like a gold standard limits, yes, it limits the amount that inflation can actually exist within a particular product, because it can only go so high, but it also limits the amount of transactions that are available out there. And the most industrious people will be able to hoard the currency, meaning that there's ever less amount of transactions available for the people out there. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, it's just like, go ahead and limit the amount of transactions. It'll only hurt the people who are hoarding it, and they will have no other choice but to relinquish that money right back out to the people again. That's the boom and bust cycles. I'm cool with it. Like, I am okay how that goes down. Most people won't be. And most people will demand the government do something about it, like they do now. And then when all of a sudden people grow rich off of what the government has done, they'll blame capitalism for it. So, what are you going to do? 316 people watching. Go hit that like button. We got 85 people who have hit the like button. If we go and hit that like button, we will find that the algorithm will pick up this video, spread it around for more people to join in on this discussion. When more people join in, it makes the chat a lot more fun. So please do so. Okay. There have been plenty of times we had gold standards when the money was actually gold. Been seeing charts showing China trades with dollar down 41%. Well, that's not okay. Well, let's take into consideration what's actually happening, because China is actually slowing down dramatically in a lot of things that is happening out there. And you also have to think, like, they are doing their best to deal with the dollar-denominated debt crisis. Right? It's so funny, because, like, it's not even the dollar-denominated debt in China that is such a major amount. It's not like the volume of it. Right? That's not the problem. Right? The problem is that when a corporation in China has their debt issuance, just like anybody else, like everybody has debt issuance, there's a credit rating that is attached to that. right? So when a Chinese corporation has a bunch of debt out there, they have a credit rating just like anybody else, which means that the interest rates that they pay will be better or worse depending on their credit rating. However, it's the credit rating that is attached to the US dollar denominated debt that is the most important part. And now this is where the struggle begins because the dollars are now becoming less available in China as they are going through de-dollarization, which is actually destroying themselves when it comes to their dollar denominated debt. Now, I don't necessarily believe that they are trying to get out of the dollar like a lot of people are trying to say that they are. Yes, there's evidence of it, and sure you can point to it, but every time they sell a US Treasury, what are they doing? What do you receive when you sell a treasury? You receive cash, you receive dollars. What do they do with those dollars? They're trying to pay down their own debts, which now is being essentially depleted out of the nation. So if you don't have that IOU, okay, I know this is a roundabout way, but if you don't have that IOU that's due in dollars, then how can you do a dollar transaction with an IOU that's denominated dollars if it doesn't exist? So how much transactions in dollars are actually happening when you have a slowdown within the economy, which is debt destruction essentially, and the most critical part of that debt structure is the US dollar denominated portion of it. Now, all the things that I just said, all the defensive things towards everybody's belief that they're trying to get out of the dollar, right? Think about it. That's probably what's really going on. Not them like, oh, we're going to go ahead and destroy the U.S. They can care less about destroying the U.S. when they're hungry themselves. Right? Now, I'm sure they do care about destroying the U.S., but I think they have another idea in mind, and that is saving themselves first. Which is another thing that they're attempting to do with like the massive construction of solar panels is to destroy the manufacturers of solar panels around the world. It's totally working. All right, 362 people watching. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. Go hit that like button, everybody. All right, do you think the bullwhip effect is going to hit NVDA chips, which will cause a decent decline in their profit margins and growth, which will cause a decline in the stock? If yeah, had to guess when. Okay, so first of all, I don't look into that stock particularly because I don't know anything about that kind of business. So it's really hard for me to like kind of go in there and find like the ambition to go and research and read about this particular one. Now, it has been a while ago that I said that there was going to be a glut of semiconductors and chips coming into not only the United States, but the globe in general. I believe that's still to be the case, and I think it is happening now. Now, whether or not there are a particular quality of chips that are only unique to a particular manufacturer that can then drive the uniqueness of what it is being created right now as far as like the automation and AI and robotics and all the other stuff that goes into it. So basically saying that if they have a technology that is unique to them, that is being produced in a way that only they can really do in an efficient manner, then I think they would probably be okay, even in a flooded chip market, because they would have that uniqueness, right? But if they're just producing the same thing that everybody else is doing, then I would be very leery of that. Yes, there would be a major bullwhip effect coming to that, and I couldn't tell you when because I just don't know. Like I would just be pulling a number completely out of my ass, and I just don't know. So, but I mean, you can see if you're into that sort of like information and stuff, then yeah, I would definitely look for the bullwhip effect on it. Like it's happening throughout many industries. Like the car market is suffering through it right now, and it's going to be other industries, and they don't all hit at once. So. All right, at this point, they already stirred the mix. Red and blue create some kind of finishing. All right, they can't kick out everyone. Okay, let's cruise down here to the bottom. All right, happy Friday. Happy Friday to you too, Mr. Horology. Ask the man about lumber. He doesn't know about potato chips. All right, I think there is a demand for chips because of AI. The whip may not occur at all. Well, I do somewhat agree with that, except that the amount that was being produced, right, in order to meet the overwhelming demand is something that is going to have an economic reality to it that is going to be somewhat like the bullwhip effect. Like, you can't stop this from happening. And the only thing that it would take is a massive, massive production of something that would demand the chips themselves, right? So, like, all the production, all the massive investment would meet the demand. Like, that doesn't work like that. When you have an extreme shortages and then you have an overwhelming investment going into it, eventually you will find that you have overproduced. Oversupply, undersupply, oversupply. It's the same thing. It happens time and time again. There is different ways that it looks. There's, different outcomes to, the reality when it's like whether or not it completely crashes the industry or whether or not just kind of becomes annoying for people at times. It looks differently for everybody, but that oversupply, undersupply, economic force, the bullwhip effect will definitely happen. Right. If China makes a movie at Taiwan, the chip market will go bonkers. I dare anyone to short NVDA. Google is buying, Microsoft is buying, OpenGPT is buying, all in the millions. No balls. China war would affect tech stocks. Cash is already here. However, big corps own media, so downplaying. All right, so here we go. Benny, okay. I'm always always wondering about what Benny has to say. Here we go. All right, Benny, Simon, what are your thoughts on a private entity such as the Fed controlling economic policy and currency float across the world? Would a U.S. only based central bank currency be better option? Well, I don't know about a better option, and I don't know if I mean, are they necessarily in control of economic policy or are they control of monetary policy? Because what is economic policy? I mean, economic policy would be the decisions that you make, right? Like, they don't make decisions for you, so you make your own decisions. Now, whether or not you're making a decision based on the idea that the Federal Reserve is cutting interest rates, or if you're making a decision based on the idea that they're going to keep interest rates elevated for a significant amount of time, will create a completely different economic outcome for you. So they're not in control of economic policy. You're in control of economic policy. However, they are in control of monetary policy, and with that monetary policy, they happen to also be the custodian of the world reserve currency, which is very difficult to now provide the world with that currency at the same time, try and deal with the monetary policies here in the United States. So, what is it that they are going to do, or is it going to be something that is going to change the way that the Federal Reserve conducts themselves in order to not be the custodian of the world reserve currency? Like, that's probably ultimately it, right? Like, they shouldn't do this kind of thing. And then how would that look, right? So you'd have to reel back in all the dollars out of all the contracts that exist out there, which is going to be very difficult considering there is far more contracts than there is dollars. So now you have to provide the world with enough dollars to pay off the contracts, yet not create more contracts that need to be paid off with dollars that don't exist. Like, how is this done? Like, I don't think it can be done. All right. So now that it's only a one-way street. Right? So you can't reel it back in. It can only go one way because there's just simply not enough dollars to pay off all the debt. So you can always issue out more debt, but you can't ever really bring it all back in because eventually all the dollars will cease to exist, but there'll still be debts to pay. Okay. Now, what is it that the Federal Reserve is going to do, considering that they can't back up, they can only go forward, and they do have the ability to buy the debts of foreign nations? Now, if there is debts that are due in dollars that exist in some other land that doesn't have anything to do with the United States, doesn't have anything to do with the Fed or the government or corporations or the people or anything else, but they have a debt that is due in dollars over there that's creating a demand for dollars here that is screwing with our manufacturers. What is it that we need to do about that? Like, I mean, stop taking out debts in dollars, right? No, that ain't gonna work. Like, they're gonna, like, hey, screw you, dude. We do whatever we want. So, what do we do? Like, there's nothing to provide the world with that dollars, because hell, at least we can just print up the money and live off of printed money and not actually have to do anything, because those people over there keep issuing out debts in dollars. Now, we can buy their debts, their foreign sovereign debts, like, whatever, like the debt of Brazil, right? Their bonds, put it on the Fed's balance sheet, print out dollars, and then give them to them and say, well, there's the dollars. We'll just back our U.S. dollars with your sovereign debt. Does that sound pleasant? Like, I mean, that idea scares the hell out of me to think about. It's just like, man, what would that be like? Like, as long as you could keep those dollars in Brazil. All right. Now, how do you do that? You can't. Like, if there's paper dollars in Brazil, they're gone. I guess you could do it through the banking system. Say, like, these particular dollars can only exist as digitals and they can't leave Brazil. But then, like, how do you really even do that? Because really, you can turn it into a commodity that could, like, eventually leave. So again, like, you can't really go through this idea that, okay, so the Federal Reserve needs to figure out a way that they could put something on their balance sheet that isn't the U.S. Treasuries, because those guys are about ready to crash and burn from all the debt issuance. They're on an unsustainable debt path. So these nations over here are highly in demand for dollars from all the dollar-denominated debt that they have issued out. And here it is, we're trying to figure out how to conduct a monetary policy that not only provides the ability to bring manufacturers back to the United States, which means that we need to weaken the currency and make it more available for people out there to buy our products. And since that doesn't work out too well, then, well, what do we do? Like, there's nothing. You can just keep talking the circle over and over again. I know what the United States is going to do. They're going to keep going into debt issuance until it doesn't work anymore. And they're going to figure out whatever creative ways they can put stuff on the balance sheet in order to create the dollars. Now, whether they go into foreign purchases of assets or they start coming into creative menu items that are here in the United States, like even taking it into reality of corporate, maybe municipal state debts, who knows? Like, I mean, my mind can spin on the possibilities. All right. Way to go, Benny. Fired me up, didn't you? Okay. Agreed, Ralph. I tested out a nut jubilee and was rewarded and felt uber relief. Okay. The goal is not to bring manufacturing back. They just say that. Oh, there is no bringing manufacturing back. I already know that. All right. I know you invest in crypto. Have you ever looked into Cardano, ADA? Yeah, I think I have. I mean, I don't think I have a little bit. I don't know exactly how much I have. But here's the thing. Cryptocurrency is, it's not a scam, right? I'm not going to say it's a scam, but there's really not a lot that these cryptocurrencies can do. Right? When they come up with these new projects, when they come up with these ideas, they come up with all this stuff, it's kind of rehashing out the same thing over and over again. Like, I really don't see anything at all that any of these cryptocurrencies are doing, like all the altcoins, all the other stuff. I don't see anything that they are doing that Bitcoin isn't already doing or will or can do at some point here in the future. Like, I don't see any other reason to buy anything other than Bitcoin. I don't. Like, I know these other projects will exist. Like, there are going to be some valuable projects that move forward into the future that people will use, and I have very little doubt about that, right? I don't. But as far as, like, what I look at as far as going into like, there's really nothing that Bitcoin isn't doing, or there's nothing that all these coins are doing that Bitcoin can't do or won't be able to do in the future, whether it's a secondary layer system or something that goes along with it. So to me, there's just nothing else. It's just Bitcoin. Like, you know. And with that being said, I do own a bunch of different altcoins, but I have like already my expectations of Bitcoin is really low. My expectation of those altcoins is almost non-existent. It's like it pretty much is non-existent. Okay, downward. Here we go. I'm voting for Elon Musk. All right. You think you the wing, you ain't even the flap. Any chance you would change your name to Rooster Cogburn? Oh, how did you say that? Listen here, dog. Listen here. I tell you. All right, JFK is greater. Trust me, I like him. Hey, thank you very much. Terpenoids. All right, terpenoids. Oh, I get it. Okay. $2. Thank you so much. All roads. Ooh, man, I almost deleted your comment. All right, all roads lead to Bitcoin. Yeah, and I just like, I mean, I'm not a Bitcoin maximist by any means. Like, I've met some people who are really into Bitcoin, right? Mark Moss, huge Bitcoin fan, right? Good buddy. I mean, I really dig Mark, like his presentations at the Rebel Capitalist are by far the best, right? I mean, I shouldn't necessarily like knock the other speakers because their information is like sense like their information is in ways more superior, but the way Mark presents stuff, his presentation is like it's phenomenal. It's really good. So he's $400 million Bitcoin. Yeah, like I am down for it, man. 400 million, I'm on board. Mark, yeah, bro, you and me, man. I'm down for $400 million Bitcoin. Like I doubt that'll happen, right? But I'm cool with it. I've met some other people, who are Bitcoin maximists who really believed in it, thinking about being a new world, the next world reserve currency, all that other stuff. I don't see it. Like Gresham's law, Triffin's dilemma, Cantillon effect, all those stuff starts kicking in, and I start looking at hard currencies or fixed currencies, and I start thinking, man, the people will not handle this well, right? Now, if people understood it, like if you understood it like in your subconscious from the very beginning that you have to hold on for the bad times, right? Because you know that there's going to be booms and bust cycles. You know there's going to be a limitation in currency and transactions, and during that time, you have to be able to get through that time, right? Most people want a consistency. They want, hey, I want it to be the same as yesterday and going into the future. I want to be able to do the same things over and over again and not have to worry about the ever-changing tides or weather or changes in seasons or anything like that. They can't do it. Like, they can't do it. And so if they could, then I would be like, okay, let's do Bitcoin. Let's do gold. Let's do something like that. But most people are just going to suffer in misery, and I ain't willing. I don't want to see it, right? I would much rather do my best to try and get on the right side of the wedge from the things that I can see happening within the monetary policies as of today, because trying to fix it is hopeless, and doing anything about it means that I would be fighting a system, and I don't want to fight it. I don't even want to join it. I just want to take advantage of what I know so that I could put myself again on the right side of the wedge and then not have to suffer the consequences. All right. What would happen to the U.S. dollar if it loses its world reserve currency? If it loses its world reserve status, you'd have to understand what that would look like. Hey, thank you very much, Lisa. I'll be right back with you, man. You have to think about like why is it even the world reserve currency? Right? So in order to lose that status, something very interesting would have to happen, right? Number one, right? People would say, okay, I don't want the dollar anymore, right? Okay, that's cool. Everybody can say, hey, I'm getting out of the dollar, right? I have dollars. I'm going to go buy some gold. I'm going to go buy something else with it, and I'm going to get rid of my dollars. Goodbye, all right? And they can say that. Totally get it. Like, I understand how an individual can do that. I did that somewhat myself. I went all in on silver, right? I have very little dollars. Not that I had a lot of dollars to begin with, but anyway, even after that, I have very little dollars, right? So even you as an individual can get out of the dollar. And it would be the same as if some other nation decided to do it, right? Us as an individual, those people within that nation doing it as individuals, the nation itself saying, hey, I'm going to get dollars out of my financial system, out of the banking system. We won't have these things anymore. Okay, you can say all that stuff. Here's the problem with it. There is so much dollar denominated debt out there, you need to unwind it, right? Meaning that here is a contract that is due in dollars. Now, I want out of the dollar, but I have this damn contract that is due to me in dollars for the next 10 years. So now I can just sell this thing along with a bunch of other people, and what will end up happening is the asset price will begin to lose value. So people will be like, okay, great. So now I can't even sell my asset because I can't get my dollars back out of it. So then I can take my dollars off and go buy gold. So as they try to get out of the dollar itself, they will begin to lose value on their assets. But let's just say they didn't even have the assets or anything else. They just had the dollars. Well, all the people who do have those dollar denominated debts that are looking for the dollars to get those contracts paid so they can be out of the dollar, right? Because they owe in dollars. Well, they see that you have dollars and those dollars are disappearing and they are looking for those dollars and they're willing to get a hold of them with anything they got. Man, I will give you 2 cars if you just give me that money so I can get out of this damn contract. You see what's happening here? Like the very thing that creates, like the very thing that people would need to do in order to get out of the dollar would start strengthening the dollar itself, making the dollar ever stronger, making its purchasing power stronger, making people want to get into it. Like there is nothing else. You can't knock the dollar off. You can't, it has to fail. It has to fail completely on its own from its debt issuance. There is nothing that can replace it. Once you understand Gresham's law, the only way that you can replace it is if you trade something one-to-one with it. This is where stable coins come in. If you have a stable coin, now you can trade something one-to-one with the dollar. And if you have something trading one-to-one with the dollar that is a digital currency that supposedly is backed by dollars, well, then you can pull the dollars out of the system and saying, hey, these stable coins are just as good as dollars. Besides, we're backing the stable coin with dollars. I mean, oops, we're backing it with whatever we want. But now that you have it out there in circulation and you're using it and there's no more dollars really in the system, all the cash got pulled out, that's how the system would change currencies. Or you can have a complete failure of the currency and people go like, I'm not going to use the dollar. Like, but when okay, here we go. This is how you know that there is no way that the dollar is failing. I go down to the local, Sunday market here in my town. It's a beautiful little Sunday market, got all kinds of like homemade craft stuff going, for 4 blocks. Tons of vendors, right? There's food vendors, there's all kinds of vendors there. Now, I guarantee you, right, if I go up there with a gold coin, not a single one of them is going to have change for it. Right? So I'm going to have to use a silver coin. And then the chances of me finding a silver coin or finding somebody who's going to actually trade me a silver coin is probably going to be very limited. Like if I asked everybody, I might find a few people that are going to do it. Now, here's the thing. Everybody wants cash, but even better yet, right? If you go to just about any one of them and you say, do you take a credit card or Venmo? Almost all of them do. Every one of them, right? Not silver, the good currency, right? Because that one's getting hoarded. Not even really cash. They don't even like cash that much. They would much prefer the digital one, right? Because Gresham's law says it straight up. Bad money chases out good. And so the bad money, right, is the digital form that is out there. The good currency, the gold itself, not a chance. Cash becoming very limited, right? These are the good currencies. Cash not good currency, but it's better than digits, right? Digital. But even that is getting pulled away. This is Gresham's law in effect right now in real time. Right? But go down there and like, hey, you all take Venmo? They'll all wave their hand. Yeah, here's my QR code. Right? Bleep. Send it right on over. So this is like, it's happening right now. You're not going to reverse this. This isn't something that is a reversible thing. Now, people can take a conscious effort and say, I am going to do things differently. I am not going to follow the path of least resistance like everybody else does. I am not going to do these things in a way that is going to be like convenient and easy and all that and making transactions more available. I'm not going to do that. I want to find somebody who's going to take silver dimes and quarters for the weight value of it. How many transactions are you going to do? Very few, right? Gresham's law kicks in. It's easy. Once you understand it, then you just know. You can just look out there and people are like, hey, I got this wonderful idea that we're going to have this digitized tokens that's backed with gold. And I can be like, it ain't going to work. It's not, I mean, it might work for a little bit for a handful of people who want to network and do that kind of thing together. But for the most part, you're not going to go anywhere where anybody's going to accept that because these people are all accepting the bad currency, not good currency. You can't introduce good currency. It doesn't work like that. All right, let's go check this out. We got Ligus Squigus. Great name, man. Oh, I almost deleted your comment. Man, I gotta be careful. Okay. Hey, UE, do you mind explaining? Ooh, my favorite kind of comments. Let me see here. These aren't the gold. These are the glasses. Okay. Do you mind explaining the issue of sudden deflation? How it affects employment, interest rate, wages, and currency of the side country. I saw news about retail spending falling quickly. Thanks. Okay, so I mean, well, we have to think about like, I mean, ultimately, there's a lot of different definitions for what I think a lot of people interpret what inflation deflation is, right? Now, to me, when I think about inflation, I think the expansion of money and credit. Then I think prices are the results. They're like the symptoms of inflation, right? So everybody else wants to say, no, look at inflation when rampant. And I'm thinking, well, no, inflation's over. The results of inflation are running rampant. But the inflation itself, the expansion of money and credit, that's actually diminishing, right? And so when we think about the deflationary aspect of an economy, that is it, right? The decreasing of money and credit. So if you have a contraction in the amount of car loans, mortgages, stuff like that, this is like a deflationary aspect that is now hitting the economy. Okay. Now there are some like debts that are increasing, like credit card or whatever, like that kind of thing. But for the most part, you're going to find that debt issuance is diminishing, and the dollar contraction is also taking place. This will eventually start bleeding into the economy where you'll have a slowdown in what they refer to as aggregate demand, right? And this is the overall, like, people out there living their daily lives. So when you have a slowdown in the amount of debt issuance, you're going to have a slowdown in the amount of investments that are taking place out there, especially when it comes to business investment. You're going to have a slowdown in employment. That slowdown in employment then eventually slows down in aggregate demand because the employment itself is what's given the people the ability to consume. And if they don't have the employment to consume, they're going to slow down on their consumption. That is the demand. Supply starts to increase from the supply-demand imbalances, and this is where the deflationary forces start to find themselves their way in. Even less investment goes in, even less employment, even less purchasing, and so goes the doom loop, right, of deflationary powers or deflationary forces. So, okay, again, I'm sorry, I forgot what was. So I don't find it sudden. I find like the collapse of debt issuance to be sudden, but the deflationary forces that are actually happening, that takes time to actually force its way into the economy to the point that you really start to see it. Like you might see the immediate unemployment and like maybe even some price deflation kind of happening, but the real pain from it doesn't happen for a while as like starting new businesses become impossible, building a career becomes hard, anything like, finding new jobs or growing within your job. All that stuff becomes very difficult in deflationary environments. Thank you very much for the super chat and the question. It was a good one. Let me back it up a little ways. Gresham's law is more about if you have two pieces of coin with the same face value but different bullion value, naturally you'll keep one with the higher bullion value and spend the one with less. Yes, Gerald, I really agree. That's where Gresham had noticed it. And in fact, Gresham's law didn't actually become like a law, right? Until like into like almost the 1800s. Like it was some other appearance. I forget who it was. Anyway, I should look it up because that's actually would be good information to have when I do the presentation to talk about it. Because Gresham, he noticed, he basically was like saying, okay, we got an issue here with these two coins, right? You know, it's just like some of them are getting hoarded while the other ones are being put out in circulation. So he noticed this a long time ago and talked about it and like, referred to it, but it wasn't really like considered a law, like that this is an issue that happens within the economic forces out there until like hundreds of years later. They were reflecting back on what Gresham had said and rehashing this back out because they saw it happening over and over again. It's anytime that you have two currencies in circulation, right? Now, you can see this happening even when it's not two coins of the same face value. Or yes, that is the two coins of the same face value, one being made of silver, one being made of a base metal. Once they go into circulation, they trade on the market at face value, but yet definitely one of them is more valuable. It gets hoarded away, where the less valuable one stays in circulation. Yes, that is definitely what Robert Gresham had noticed. However, if you go and you think about like just the United States, when they said that we have a fixed rate of currency to an ounce of gold, right? So you can pick up this gold for this amount of currency. Okay. Now they have adjusted it, but let's just go back to what was it, like $22 an ounce, something like that. Right. So essentially for $20 an ounce, right? This is it. So for every $20 you have, you have this much gold. And everybody believed it. But here's the problem is that they printed out way too many dollars, but nobody knew it at the time. So Gresham's law did kick in when people started realizing, oh shit, we got two different currencies happening here, but yet they trade 22 for one. Nobody realizes it. Let's start pulling the gold out, and that left too many dollars in the system, and then the whole thing started to collapse. So it's still Gresham's law that's kicking in there because they were trading equally. Like you could either go to them and say, here, I got an ounce of gold, or I got $20, and people would have been like, I'll take either one. They're the same. Right? Until they realized that they weren't. And then one of them got disappeared and the other one went into circulation. Right? It's the same thing. It's going to happen no matter what. Even if it's cryptocurrencies, I don't care. Like, if you got two currencies that are going to trade one to one of them is going to be found more valuable than the other, and it's going to get hoarded away. It's just the way it goes. All right, 380 people with 204 people hitting that like button. Let's hit that like button, get it up to 300 likes in the next 3 minutes. We're at 57 minutes into this video. I wasn't going to go very long, but this is too fun, so. All right, now, Bubby, I'm playing a very long game, friend. Pedro Diaz. I'll probably hold through 3 to 4 months, more cycles or more. He's in the town. They filmed the Goonies movie. Hey, you guys. Yeah, I sure am. They definitely filmed the Goonies here. All right. Okay. Memory. My advice, take profits, but you want to get out at the top. Good luck. Vietnam needed dollars. Still at the lumberyard. Oh, yeah, I'm at the lumberyard. Do you think the upcoming rate cut? Upcoming rate cut? What upcoming rate cut? I didn't know there was one. All right. Will trigger high unemployment? I don't think that there's an upcoming rate cut that will trigger high employment. No. Or trigger some sticky inflation. I don't think the rate cuts are going to do that. Will Gresham's law then be applied to the U.S. dollar with a new currency? I think that. Okay, let's answer the second one first since we were already on Gresham's law. I think the only way that Gresham's law is going to really take place here in the United States is if they use a stable coin. So stable coin will be essentially, or a central bank digital currency, but I don't think that even the Federal Reserve wants to do that because they can adjust monetary policy through the dollar, and anything that is being backed by the dollar will have monetary policy transfer right into it. So they don't need to do anything other than have other people back their currency by the dollar. So if you have a stable coin, regulate the hell out of it. They can have that integrate and do all the work and have all the fancy tools and things that happen. And all they have to do is just take care of maintaining the monetary policy through the dollar, and whatever monetary policy change they have will go right into the stable coins. Right, so that's the way I think Gresham's law is going to eventually work, and they'll just pull the cash out, and everybody will be using stable coins. Okay, back to the front of the question. Do you think the upcoming rate cuts will trigger high unemployment rates? No. I think high unemployment rates will eventually trigger the Federal Reserve to cut rates. I don't think it'll go the other way around. Like, I don't believe that the Federal Reserve is going to cut rates for some willy-nilly reason other than high unemployment, and that's it, right? If they can bring prices down, that's one of their mandates. They're winning. If they have prices down and unemployment is down, they're winning. Why would they change anything about the way they're doing anything? Like, they're winning. That would be them winning. Like, they would be like, oh, hey, we're winning. Let's screw that up, all right? No, that wouldn't do it, right? That wouldn't do that at all. So this is like where a lot of people think that they're screwing up because the narrative out there on the mainstream media leads people to believe that, but that's not what they're not, right? I mean, 4% unemployment. Like, I'm not saying that's what unemployment is. I'm saying monetary policy is saying that's what unemployment is. So if we're looking at it through monetary policy, then we have to say, yes, unemployment is 4%, and monetary policy finds that an approving way, right? They like that. That's good. Okay? And if inflation is coming down to just over 2%, and we don't know exactly where it is, right? I mean, we know kind of where inflation is, but we don't know where it is that the Federal Reserve wants inflation, considering that the appropriate monetary policy seeks to have inflation moderately above 2% for some time. We don't know what that is. They don't give us a formula for it, so I'd have to assume they're probably achieving that as well. They have succeeded in their dual mandate. Why would they screw that up? They wouldn't. Like, they're winning, you know? And as long as nobody knows it, then they're going to continue to win, you know? And that's what the problem is that nobody out there on the news media or anything else seems to talk about it like this, right? How they are achieving their dual mandate. They're saying they're still attempting to go for their dual mandate because they believe that the Federal Reserve is going for a 2% target. They are not. They are not shooting for a 2% target. We have gone over this a million times. It was something that I talked about at the Rebel Capitalist. I've shown an incredible amount of evidence for it. I've called out USA Today and Time Magazine for putting out articles that are completely inaccurate to the Federal Reserve's monetary policy by trying to discredit any other idea than the Federal Reserve is going for a 2% target, which they are not. It's easy for me to see. Like, once you have internalized this stuff, it is no problem. Like, I can spit this stuff out all day because I don't see it any other way. Like, people would be like, well, what about this? And I, like, even when the speakers were on stage, you know, over at the Rebel Capitalist, I was just like listening to them, and they were like maybe giving some predictions or something. I'm like, they're not including this. They're not including Triffin's Law or Triffin's Dilemma. They're not including whatever. And I'm not calling them out for being wrong. I'm just calling them out to saying, hey, you know, like, I would have brought that up and fought that argument first before I delivered the rest of my case. Because, see, if you want to win an argument, if you want to win a debate, this is how you do it. It's pretty easy. You find, okay, so you have your argument that you want to present. Then you find an argument against yours. You find that argument and you argue it better than anybody could ever possibly argue it, right? Like beating your own belief with an argument that is better than anybody else could possibly argue it, and then you beat that, right? And by doing that, there's nobody else who can beat you in a debate. But you have to be able to beat your own argument better than anybody else can. And that is how I end up being like so good at a lot of this stuff out there, is because of that very nature of how I look at stuff. It's how I was able to call out the lumber industry. People ask me all the time, how did you do that? Like, what were you looking at? Who were you talking with? Who was your mentor? Nobody, literally nobody out there. I don't have anybody to talk to that has some kind of higher economic knowledge other than the internet and Google and Federal Reserve speeches. All right, let's go check this out. We got Gregory Smith with the $5. Thank you so much. Lumberyard question. Lumberyard versus Home Depot. Which lumber would you use to build a house and why? Okay, Greg Smith, this is a really good question because a lot of people have the don't go to the Home Depot, their lumber sucks. And I kind of agree. But it's the reasonings of why it does, right? Because what they end up doing is it's purchased in lots, right? So we may find there's times in which that we have a unit of lumber coming in. Now, for those of you who don't know, I work at a very small lumber yard, right? Mom and pop, one owner, one yard. This is it. This is the only place, right? Now, we all get our lumber from essentially the same place. But now when the big box store goes and buys lumber, they buy a huge amount and they distribute it to all their different stores. So when they're buying this huge amount, they're buying at an ultra cheap price, right? Because they're buying this bulk amount. Now, who knows what's going to be in there? 2x4 standard and better, right? Number 2 and better is a very relative term, right? There is like, grading procedures and stuff like that. But, when it comes to 2x4s, what is considered a standard and better can be a huge variation in quality. I mean, like dramatic. Lumber comes from mills all over the nation. British Columbia, all over Canada, all over the northwest of the United States, all over, the country, all the way down south. Lumber is milled up everywhere, right? So there is no telling what it is that is going to end up at the big box store or what's going to end up at the local yard. Now, when we go to buy lumber, my local yard, we know what we're competing against, right? We know these guys, they're huge. Their buying power, insane. Their capabilities of selling lumber for a price that is like, eye-popping, totally like available to them. Not the same for us. We're a mom and pop place, right? I mean, now we do have a buying power because we have a network that we buy with, right? So, we can kind of jump into a buying power very similar to that of a Home Depot kind of application. But it's not quite the same thing. And so knowing that they're going to have, who knows, the cheapest lumber possible out there, and who knows what that's going to look like because, really standard and better is very relative. You can pick out a premium grade. You can say, hey, I want the premiums. I want a standard and better premium grade. Where now you don't have nearly as much bark wane. Now, if you're not familiar with that, when they mill a board, sometimes the very edge of the tree, like the exterior outside live edge of the tree, ends up on the lumber itself. They call that wane, sometimes bark wane, right? But it's called wane. Now, you can get lumber that has very little wane, right? And carpenters like this because, well, for one, when you go to put drywall on one side and plywood on the other, you actually have some board there to nail to and screw to. So it makes it much more easier to build a frame or build a house or frame a house when you have a premium grade. Is it required? Absolutely not. Can you build with a standard and better crap lumber? Sure can. As long as you put it on a 16-inch center and, drop a couple of nails into each end of the plate and put it all into place, the inspector is going to pass it. However, for a little bit of more money, you can go down the road and then you don't even have to pick through the lumber. For the most part, most of the lumber is going to be good. That's not always the case, right? Sometimes the premium grades aren't available, so you have to step it down to the other grades, which then means that you're like pretty much competing with the same quality as everybody else is, and the prices might not be as good because you don't have that buying power. This ends up happening there. All right. Now, when you go down to the local lumber yard, I don't know. It all depends on, the attitude of the happens to be of the salesman you have at the time. But for the most part, I don't know, this could be different for different, box stores across the nation. I've never really shopped at them because I've always worked at lumber yards. But from what I hear, they're not exactly like the most knowledgeable group of people that are working the big box stores. There might be a couple of them there who really do know what they're doing. But for the most part, they're just kind of warm bodies they pulled off the street to stock shelves and, ring customers up and stuff like that, but don't have any kind of actual experience when it comes to the building industry. When you go to the local lumber yard, a lot of times you'll find people who work at the local lumber yard were carpenters themselves or have been in the industry so long, right, that they know it better than like anything else in their lives. They know the vendors, they know the building materials, they know how it goes together, they can read blueprints. There's all kinds of stuff that these guys who have been in the industry as far as building supplies go, they have been there a long time. This is not necessarily the case that you find at the big box stores. So now when you go down and you start asking about particular building materials, or you're asking about like, where it is that you might be able to get specialty items, or trying to get specialty items like windows and doors or sidings that might be a little bit more difficult. They might not be the like, your typical shape. I'm from Astoria. It's a 200-year-old town. We have like carpenter, like architecture buildings here that are like not anywhere else you're going to find. And so trying to track down a lot of the parts and pieces for these houses, this is like, something that not a lot of like big box stores are maybe necessarily doing or know how to do even, right? I mean, we all kind of get our stuff from the same people, but if you don't know what it is or how it is or who even has it, then it makes it difficult to try and track those things down. So local lumber yards generally, yeah, you might have a little bit more added cost that goes to them because they don't have that buying power like the big box stores do. But the convenience and the knowledge and the ability to get through your project in a more efficient manner is probably going to save you way more money than going down there and wasting time at the big box store. I mean, to each their own. Like I've been to the big box stores and I'm pretty impressed by how much stuff they have in there. I'm like, wow, I wander around and there, I was like, dude, this place is huge, right? But there's really nothing that they have that the other guys that anybody can get. Like there's like nothing. Like there's some things that I just don't deal with, like like ceramic tile, for example. I don't have a decent supplier of ceramic tile. I don't have displays of it. I don't have it in stock. Trying to get it is, difficult because it ends up breaking most of the time. I mean, I can get it, but it's not like something I really like to deal with a whole lot just because there's other stores out there that deal in tile. Like that is their thing. And I'm thinking, I would love to sell you the mortar, the grout, the spacers, and everything else. But if you want to go down to the other guys down there and pick out your actual tile, I think you're going to be happier. I think the product is going to be better and cheaper. And, by giving somebody that instead of saying, hey, I'm just going to take your money because I know I can, I think is going to end up in the long run building a better partnership with those customers anyway. And that's not the type of thing that you would get from a big box store, right? So, I mean, it's a huge difference. Moving on. Greg Smith, $5. Hey, thank you for the $5, man. And you were absolutely welcome, man. I love answering lumberyard questions. I mean, I'll tell you all the secrets. Like, I mean, anything you want to know. Here's another thing. Don't try and haggle lumber prices. Don't try and haggle the lumber prices. No point. There's no money made in lumber at all. The markup on it is almost insignificant. Haggle for nails, screws, hanger, like the hardware, the hangers, like, I mean, I don't want to name names, but there's like brackets kind of thing. Haggle for that stuff because those are the biggest markup items, and you have a better chance of getting a 10% discount on that than you will on the lumber. You'll haggle on the lumber all day long and it won't do anything but piss the lumberyard off because they don't make any money on it. It is a big ticket item, right? It is. But, just think about all the little parts and pieces that go into the rest of it and try to do as much in one single shot, right? Buy as much as you possibly, like if you could store all the hardware, all the bracket, all the things in one shot to say, hey, if I buy all this in one deal and give you cash for it, what kind of discount will you give me for it? And like, a lot of times it'll be like, man, you buy all this in one shot and promise not to return it, I will give you a hell of a discount. And boom, goes away in cash and you make a great deal on it. And then you have it available to you as well. Here's the thing. I've had people, and this is, if you want to piss a lumber yard off, do this, right? Haggle for a price and then return half the material, right? You will never get another good deal from that dude ever again. That will be your one and only time that you will ever get a good deal. You might feel good about it, but that'll be the last time, and your deliveries won't be a priority. They won't care about your special orders. They literally lose it for you. Okay, so careful, right? Careful on how you do your deals. When I've had people like ask for a discount on a box of screws and then try to return it. So this is what I do, right? I say, hey, no problem. I return the entire box, right? I return the entire box at the discounted price, find out how much they actually took out of it, and then sell them what it is that they took out at the regular retail price. Right? And I do that. Like, that's exactly how I do it, because the bulk price is for the bulk container of it. You have to keep it. Right? And, I've done this a lot. I've called somebody out on it before. They asked me, I was like, how much is an entire pallet of torch down? And I'm thinking, wait a minute, there's like 30 rolls on a pallet of torch down, right? There's no, like, there might be a building in Astoria that does that, but that, like, this dude is not needing an entire pallet of torch down, right? This is for flat roofs. It's a torch down roofing, it's just, it makes like one layer barrier kind of thing. Anyway, you guys get the point. Um, and I'm thinking, no, what he wants to do is get a bulk deal on an entire pallet, but then he's probably going to end up returning it. I said, hey, no problem. Here's the price. There will be a 20% restocking fee on all the items returned. Right? Straight up, I'm going to charge you 20% for all the items that you return. And boom, man, all of a sudden, he only needed like the 5 rolls of torch down or whatever it really was. So don't screw with the lumberyard, right? The lumberyard has been through this game so many times, and the last thing that like, you might be able to pull it off on, do it a couple of times on them, but then you're gonna find that your deliveries are lagging. They won't give you any discounts. They don't care about tracking down your special orders. They just lose it for you, right? So you want to work with them as much as they want to work with you, because the lumberyard wants you to succeed. Like, they want to do deals with you. They want to sell you stuff, but they don't want to get screwed in the meantime. Right? I mean, we're all into it, make money, just like everybody else is. So that's probably the easiest way to kind of get a discount at a lumberyard, is to not worry about the lumber portion of things. Just set that aside to say, hey, man, I'll buy all that lumber, whatever retail price, doesn't matter, because they ain't going to be able to get a good discount on it anyhow. And to say, if I buy all the hardware, though, in one shot, will you give me a discount on that? Right? That's probably your best shot at getting a good discount. Right? Especially if you're not, a contractor. If you're building a house, that's different, because you can go to a house and say, hey, man, I'm building an entire project. I need a bid and, material takeoff and stuff like that. I'm talking about for like the average homeowner looking to build, like, maybe a deck, or, remodel the house or something like that. They're working on an addition themselves. That's how you would do it. The other way is to go down and make friends with everybody who works at the lumberyard. Learn everybody's name and have everybody learn your name, right? And so when you walk in, you can greet each other, because they're going to start working for you a lot harder. They'll give you priority just because you're a nice guy, right? You ask for a delivery, all of a sudden your delivery moves up to, the morning as opposed to the afternoon. These things, like, I assure you, like, I mean, it's not like, hey, man, we're like picking our favorites and not, but, I mean, hell, we're all human. We pick our favorites. It's just the way it's going to go down. The nicer you are to the lumberyard, I mean, we all have to do business. It's okay to ask for discounts and try and get them, but it's a different thing to try and screw the lumberyard and trick them, right? It's gonna backfire on you big time. All right, moving on here. Let's talk about something else. Very, very broke. Okay. Build them too. I'm not so nervous about the near future as I am 1,000 from now. Why are you worried about 1,000 years from now? Who cares? I'm not even worried about 50 years from now anymore. All right. Well, I am, because of my boys. I'm a little worried for them, I guess. When our offspring are being used in a petri dish. It I wasn't until recently. I'm glad I got some ramen packs. What is happening now will decipher what sort of world we will be living in the future. Hi, Simon. Hey, stay curious. What's happening? Exactly. Bitcoin versus gold. Gold. Gold always wins. Gold always wins in the end, because gold is the number one, right? Gold and silver. I kind of talk about gold and silver in the same light. I think silver is actually better than gold, but it's to each their own on that. But what it comes down to is, if you have Bitcoin versus gold, Bitcoin can't exist without gold. Gold can exist without Bitcoin. Gold wins. Right? Gold always wins. Bitcoin greater than gold. No, I don't think so. Some of us just keep going forward. All right, all fiat currencies return to gold and silver. Why would it be any different now? It's not. That's absolutely true, and I don't disagree with that. But I mean, just from our own examples throughout history and from our own daily lives that we are experiencing, just much like being down there at the Sunday market, nobody will accept gold. Nobody. No, like I don't like you'll go down there with a 10th ounce gold coin and you will not get change for that from anybody anywhere, except for the classic coin guy who is actually on that street. So I mean, I shouldn't say that. There is one guy who will, right? For sure. So classic coin, Scott, you can pop into his shop, sell off your gold coin, then go out there to the merchants and start using your cash. But nobody's going to accept gold. I doubt anybody will accept Bitcoin, right? You might find somebody there who has like, Coinbase account or something like that that might accept Bitcoin, but I doubt it. Everybody will accept cash and everybody will accept a debit card. Everybody, right? So it's just like, I mean, you can wish and pray and want it to be whatever you want. Like, I mean, I don't care if it's gold or silver or Bitcoin. I'm cool with it. I mean, I don't wish or pray for any of it. I don't care about fiat even. Like, but that's what's existing. Not that I care. It is. So I deal with it the way it is. Like, because there's nothing I can do about that. Right? Thoughts on the Fed's job data that came out? I call BS. It doesn't. I know, but it doesn't matter. See, this is where it doesn't matter if you believe it or not, right? It's in at the end of the day, because I don't believe it either, right? And I never have. I mean, I totally think that there's world governance coming to take our, destroy everything inside of our lives. I believe all that stuff is going to eventually happen, true. But I don't care about discussing any of that stuff or winding my mind around it because it doesn't matter. Right? At the end of the day, what are you going to do? You're going to show up for work and you're going to go and try and enjoy your life. And that's really what I'm going to attempt to do. Now, when I think about the BS numbers that are coming out, yeah, every single one of them since FASB 56, right? FASAB 56, legal lies. Check out the video I did. It was like the first year this channel came out. I had made a video talking about how it is that the government was stating in open to the public, straight up, we are not going to give you the real numbers. All the numbers that you are going to see on the mainstream media or the ones that come out from the government, all the stuff that you are reading is completely fraudulent numbers. They are admitting this. They say they have to do it for national security reasons. The moment that they said that, I was done. I was like, okay, I don't need to look at the numbers anymore because it doesn't matter what they are. They're lying about it for national security reasons. So whatever it is doesn't matter, right? And like literally they can be like, well, the number is this, and I'm like, okay, the number's that. It's just like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. What matters is the direction that they are going in by how much, if you're going to look at them, right? I think that is more critical than anything out there because it's the only thing that they could actually do that is going to be giving any kind of legitimate information out there to the public for the people to receive who are in the know. Right? I don't know if you guys know this, but they project information directly through the mainstream media out there to the New World Order messenger receivers out there. They broadcast these messages straight through the mainstream media, right? Because they can't hide it, right? They have to put it out there. And the people recognize it, understand it, and then be able to make their moves based off of this. And that's how they do it. Like they're not the real numbers. It's the direction that they go and by how much. I know it. Right? I know it. And so that's why it doesn't matter. Like 4%, 8%, 20% doesn't matter. Right? Whatever. It's the direction. Did it go up or down? That's the key. Right? Is it going up? Man, it's starting to put a little pressure on it. Maybe they'll start moving in a direction in which they might start to get into an area where they need to lower rates, right? But here's the thing. Unemployment rises significantly. Lowering rates doesn't stimulate the economy because they won't be able to get it far enough below neutral interest rate to actually do anything. So it's going to be all about the communications that they are presenting to the people. Very important to understand that. The cutting of rates doesn't do it. There is an insensitivity of the interest. Let me see if I got this right. The low interest rates has an insensitivity to the labor markets. Right? The interest rates has an insensitivity to the labor markets. This is, again, so difficult like all the ideas of how the Federal Reserve conducted monetary policy need to be abandoned, right? And not abandoned to the point that you don't need to think about them anymore, right? What you have to abandon is the idea that they operate, that they work, okay? But you have to be aware of them because that discussion is what's guiding the markets. Right? I mean, I try to say this in every single video, and I don't know if I can communicate it any other way, right? It's like literally it's the words that they are using in discussions about what it is that's going to happen to the interest rates going into the future. That is the monetary policy within itself, not the adjustment of interest rates, because that won't do anything, but the talking about it does. And that's what's so nuts about it. They figured that out a long time ago. They were like, they tried using forward guidance to enhance interest rates adjustments. And they realized that, holy shit, forward guidance is more of the interest rate adjustment, right? The interest rate adjustment is almost superficial to the jawboning. That's what's scary about it. Like, it's like like the interest rate adjustments is almost inconsequential to the monetary policy anymore. It's the words about it that are of consequence, and that is hard to understand, right? Because nobody wants to see it in that fashion. Everybody wants to be more mechanical. The fashion 2% cut does blah blah blah, right? It's because that's the way we have been geared our entire lives. This is the way the Fed has always operated. Right? But it's not that way anymore. It's literally not. I mean, when you think about it, the neutral interest rate is close to zero. Nobody knows exactly where it's at, even if it has risen, 2.5, even if it was at 3%. Think about how far the Fed would have to drop interest rates today. They would have to drop it better than 2%, right? Down to under 3 on the Fed funds rate. At that point, they would be neutral. They would then have to go another, 2%, get close to zero in order to be stimulating to the economy. And then at that point, it would take 6 months to a year down the road before it would actually do it. Like, the Fed doesn't move rates to stimulate the economy. It doesn't work. It doesn't matter. Even if they did, it would be years from now, even if it worked, before it would have any kind of real impact to the economy. Yeah? Like literally years from now. People say, oh man, the Federal Reserve is going to cut rates to help Biden. No, anything that they would do right now would take years. Like literally a year before it would have any kind of impact to the economy. Take 18 months before it had a full impact. And even at that point, it would be so close to zero and so little dropped below the neutral interest rate that the impact would be almost inconsequential. It would be almost nothing. Right? It would take an extensive amount of quantitative easing, the asset purchases and efforts from fiscal policy to do any kind of real stimulus to the economy. Oh, not those ones, these ones. All right. What are your thoughts on AI and humans giving birth to artificial general intelligence? How will it impact the economy? I don't know. I've talked about this. I cannot see Simon. Yeah, I know it's starting to get dark in here. I think I like technology. Like, I'm into it. I'm looking forward to all the neat things that technology has to offer going into the future. I'm not scared of it one little bit. So, like, its impact on the economy, I mean, you think about it. Cantillon described wealth as food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. If AI brings us food, conveniences, and pleasures of life, then it's bringing us wealth, and I think that's the way people should look at it. Unfortunately, most people like to be, like, be scared, and so they look at it in a scary fashion, and I can totally see why. I mean, there's There's scary things that could happen from it, right? I mean, like, let your mind just wander on it. I totally get it. I'm not that scared. Like, I don't live that life. I don't live in fear, and I look forward to the days of, happiness and convenience and joy. So, but I mean, I think it'll have an impact. To me, it's going to make life easier, right? Food, conveniences, and pleasures of life. Bring on the wealth, right? I don't need that much. I don't need whatever it is. Like, I need music, I need a view, and I need a ribeye, and that's it. Then that's all I need. Yeah. And this paddle game, and this ashtray, and this chair, and that's all I need. Lumber shrinkflation is real. Everything we do does not benefit the past. It only benefits the future. In some way, it removes the benefit. I'm just watching chat. Yeah, I can barely see him too. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll call it quits here in just a few. Do you think the black market can boom during an official recession? I think the black market always, I mean, like, you have to understand, growing up in Oregon, like, here, let me get into the light here a little bit so you can see me. Growing up in Oregon, we always had, like, marijuana was never a crime. It was decriminalized back in, like, I think the late 60s or early 70s. So it was never a crime to have possession of marijuana. It was a crime to have it in packages for distribution. It was a crime to manufacture it, and it was a crime to have more than an ounce. But other than that, there was no crime. You couldn't drive, right? You weren't supposed to be under the influence. But a simple possession of an ounce of marijuana or less was a $600 misdemeanor ticket. You went on your way, right? Nobody went to jail. Nobody lost their lives. None of that stupid thing. None of that happened. No, not here, right? It was never a crime. It was a misdemeanor. You paid a ticket. You went on your way. And with that came a huge black market for weed, right? It was like, low punishment, like low risk. Well, then, you get a little bit more prevalent, right? So there was a huge black market for it. And it was obvious, like, there was a set price. Like, it was this much. Everybody knew it. Everybody paid this. Like, how was it that this price was established? Because there was no official location, no, like, spot price, right? But yet there was high quality price and low quality price, and then you found it somewhere in between, and it really didn't fluctuate that much, right? It was somewhere in between these two prices. And and I always looked at that. It was just like, man, this is the obvious, like, real black market at work here, right? Couldn't have banks involved. There wasn't. I mean, you could, I guess, in some ways, but for the most part, it was an all cash basis, all word of mouth, all networking, and it found its pricing, right? And it was pretty stuck at that price consistently for a long time until it was legalized, and then the price completely crashed. And then the only thing that really made weed any kind of value was the processing of it. So now you guys can't see me at all. Oh, we're going to have to call it quits here, guys. What time is it? Yeah, it's almost 10 o'clock. See, it's still light out. All right. But I can't see my screen. Okay, here we go. We're back down to the bottom. Black market is just the actual market. Yeah, I agree too. That's what I kind of thought. It was like there was supply met demand, and prices were found and discovered. Yo, I'm here. You can start now. All right, Michael. Well, let's start from the very beginning. Turns out there's a lot of mill curtailments taking place, and with this mill curtailments, they are not creating the byproduct of pulp, or the fiber, which is now being a problem for the pulp industry, and we're starting to find where the pulp industry is going into curtailment themselves. Hey, Simon, thanks for the agreements and the arguments. It's always nice to see your opinions. Yeah, I appreciate it, and that's all it really is. It's just my opinion, right? I mean, we all have our own opinions. We all see it differently. We all have, like, the imports that we have brought in, the important things that we look at. A lot of times we have focused in on politics and geared our life around politics. Some of us have done it in, different fashions to take on different beliefs. And it makes it difficult sometimes to now, like, because you have had these set beliefs and then take in a different view or a different angle, and that's one of the things I really would like to think that I have done at times. I know I don't always do this, and I think it's human nature that you'll never be able to always do it, but that is to actually look at things from other people's point of view, to look at it from, you know, being somebody like, right down to being homeless. Like, what would it be like to be on the streets, to try and suffer through that every single day, to not know where your next food meal is going to come from? How is it that you're dealing with, a disease or something else that you might have, or you don't have access to medical care or anything like that? These are very depressive thoughts, but you really have to consider them if you really want to understand how the economy is functioning. Because if you can't put yourself in their shoes, then you're only going to see it from your shoes, which means, why don't those guys just go get a job? Doesn't quite work that way. It doesn't quite work like that. And, this is it, man. Trying to figure it out. And you go through discussions and you think about things from as many points of view as you can. And, hopefully you can then make the best decisions for yourself. All right. Pedro, good luck with the AI. Is just a dream like the Jetsons, but in reality. You know what I found is that, here's the thing: AI is going to start creating all kinds of stuff that is just like, it's going to take the human aspect right out of it. Like, say for example, even I was like, a buddy of mine was just like, dude, man, there is some cool AI programs out there. He asked like an AI program to design him like a video or something. And he was like, man, I was amazed by how accurate this thing actually was able to pop a video together with all kinds of cuts and edits and, overlays and all kinds of stuff happening within just a matter of minutes, and just off a description. It was just like, this is incredible how well this thing functions, and it looks good. And I'm thinking, awesome. That just makes my job that much easier. It makes my job that much better and that much easier in here in the dark, making all the sounds, lights turning on and off. You know that it's authentic. You know this isn't AI generated. You know this is me being real in my car talking to real people. All right? This is going to be a return to Renaissance. People don't want that. They don't want that commercial packaged up cookie cutter program stuff. All right? What they want is somebody real. They want to see the rough edges. They want to see the mistakes. They want to see the inconsistencies. It's what makes it real, right? And that's why I find it just like, good. Let AI bring it on, man. AI can't do what I do. Like, let AI try and screw up in an authentic way. Right? Where you're like, oh man, I feel you, dude. I feel you up there on stage, can't read your computer. Right? That happened to me at the Rebel Capitalist. I had to borrow glasses from some old dude. Not old dude, he was not that old. From a guy down in the yard. He was a nice guy. Him and his son, they were both really chill. I shouldn't say that. They were both really awesome people. But he loaned me his glasses. He was like, hey man, us old guys have to stick together. And I'm like, man, more than you know, right? I had to go out, get glasses from some dude in the audience in order to do a presentation at the Rebel Capitalist. I didn't care, right? I mean, I was screwing up, and I'm like, God, bro, you're just like, really? Like, I literally thought to myself, I was like, really? Dude, you don't have any glasses up there, But nobody said anything. Nobody cared. Nobody in the audience cared that happened, right? They were like, okay, man, you got your glasses. Okay, continue on. Let's hear it, Like, they didn't, like, it, but if it was AI or something like that, and they were screwing up, people would be like, why is this AI generated screw up happening? Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Simon, people never put themselves in other person's shoes, no, you're right, they don't, nor do they place themselves in other life or culture. I totally agree with it. And it's one of the reasons why I think I've been able to do fairly well on my channel, is because at times I feel that I can do that. Like, not necessarily to a fullest extent where I can embrace everything it is that they are feeling and understand how they live. I can't do that, right? But I can at least, try to think about it. It's just like, man, what would it be like to sit on a cold bench in the middle of the rain with no place to go to, and hungry and kind of hungover Like, what would that feel like? Feeling like, you got that headache that's on the top of your head, and you got that feeling like you're about ready to throw up a little bit, but you don't have anywhere to go, and you're cold, and it's raining, and, you know. You don't think like that? Figure out what it is that that dude over there is, experiencing? Yeah? To think, man, pretty grateful for what it is that I have in my life, and I think, man, how hard did I have to work to get here, and what did he not do? Maybe what did he do? What happened to him? You know? How easy was it for him to be sitting there on that bench, hungover, sick feeling, cold and wet? How did he get there? You don't do that? How did George Gammon get where he get? How did he do that? Was it that hard work from that one decision that he made, building that, doing that first construction job? You sit there and you think, man, it's just like, does he experience anything of hardship like what that dude over there does? Yeah. I see him, holding his cool the entire time, never once ever losing composure, never once got excited, never once raised his voice, never once got, angry about anything. Always the Iceman, the entire time. How does he do that? Like, what is it that he's feeling that he can pull that off? Me, I get excited. I start throwing my arms around, and I'm like, oh, jacked up on coffee, and I can't help it. I get animated. Not George, man. The entire time, same cool voice, same cool collective, same. When he does laugh, it's just like, it's a quick, genuine laugh, and then it's right back to cool George again. And how does he do that? You know. All right, moving on. Yeah, right. Fuzzy dice. Shit. All right. Fuzzy dice on the glass. 14K, 10K chain around the neck. You like that? No, that's a silver. It's about 2 ounces. Okay. Wonder if the people will wake all the way up and work together unstoppable. Nope. I mean, it would be nice if they did. It would be a cool experience, but I don't think that'll happen. How people really believe the Hollywood movies. Yeah, people, some people do. All right. Yes, one person can do that, not 50. Maybe that person on the bench had nothing, nobody, no family, no support at all. But hey, you need to pick yourself up and make something out of nothing. Yes, sir, the craftsman. I totally agree with that, man. I absolutely, totally agree with that. And I don't know what to say. Like, I have friends that I've watched them. Like, we were at one time all standing at the same place. We were all standing at the exact same spot. Right? There was no difference between me or anybody else. I I got this, and my buddies, they they don't, right? And so yeah, every day we made a different decision. Sometimes I wonder, it was just like, man, did I miss out on having fun and enjoying, like, partying and doing whatever? Like, I enjoyed a lot of parties that I did anyway, but not like these guys. Like, they were popular. They were surfing, and they were mountain biking, they were snowboarding, they were partying up, getting drunk, getting late, doing all the stuff all the time. They ain't got nothing in their life. They ain't got no job. They ain't got no future. They ain't got no house. They ain't got nobody in their life at all. Right? All that party and all those things is all went away. Sometimes I look back, I'm thinking, man, I wish I had that going on. And then get the experience like they got, but dang, look what I got going on now. I bet you they would trade anything to have even half of what it is that I have. And I'm not trying to brag it up, and I mean, I worked hard for what I had to get here, and it took a lot of dedication, and it took a lot of work and belief and all that, which is something that I know a lot of people don't have. But is it luck? Was it work? Was it dedication? Who knows? But every one of us has a different life, that's for sure, And I look back at some of them, and I know a lot of these people. Like, I knew them. I've known them my whole life. To see them on the streets, it's just like, it's I never would have thought it. Even family members. Maybe that's why I look at it. It's because I actually have family members there. See, I have family members who are like who've done it all. Like it just amazes me. Like I have from all the way from the streets all the way up to the most amazing things that they've pulled off in history. It's just like it floors me to have such an array. All right. Oops, I'm an hour late. Yep, we're an hour 43 minutes into it. We got 317 people watching with 299 likes. I love it. We have almost as many likes as we have people watching. All right. That is right. That is right. A machine will never have a soul, but it can do your job. Yeah, but the thing is that, a machine will not be able to go up and do what a stand-up comedian can do. I don't care. Like, I don't care how good the AI is. It might be funny, but it's not going to do what a real life person is going to do up there on that stage. There is no AI generated anything that is going to replace what live music is going to be. Never. I don't care. Like I don't like there will never ever be anything that AI can generate that will even remotely come close to what live music is. Right? It just can't. Right? And that's what's awesome about it is that there are some things that just simply cannot be done. You know, handcrafted. You can there can be some beautiful things being generated by AI, but nothing like what an artist can do one time. Create that one time thing that came from their imagination, that was sculpted from their own hands. Right? AI can do it, make it look perfect, whatever, but it's not gonna be the same. It's not gonna be as artistic or as heartfelt or inspiring or moving as something that somebody had created themselves, like what a human can do themselves. AI can't do it. It just can't. And the same thing with me being out here doing this, talking. Like AI can't do it. Like they can make an image, they can make a video, they can do everything that looks exactly like this. But you wouldn't feel it. You would be like, what are they doing building this stupid AI thing with some guy who can barely see, you can barely see him in his car. Like that would be, nobody would watch it, This live stream is too spooky. All right. Well, maybe we should get some scary music going or whatever. All right. AI screws up, as you put it, and requires a driver operator to make it work. Limiting factor is going to be power. One rack of GPUs now needs 100 kilowatts. Yeah. I think honestly that they'll just figure out a way to power these things up. Like I understand right now the way the grid is done, they'll have to advance it. It was just necessity is the mother of invention. They'll figure it out. And I mean I don't know how because I'm not that type, but they will. I mean I know they will. They tried to do that on a podcast with George Carlin, AI personality, and it was a disaster. Trained on all his performance and everything, and it was a disaster. I know, and it will be. It will be a disaster every time because you're not going to be able. Here's the thing: the reason that people connect with other people is because they're not perfect, right? Like AI is essentially almost perfect. And what isn't perfect is noticed. They're like, that's not right. Like your nose is messed up or something I mean, not saying your nose because that would be, but there's something out there that says this isn't right. And now when it comes to the human part of things, when they see that there's something not right about another human out there, it's relatable. That I feel you, man. I mean, I'm I got that same thing going, man. It's just that issues are the connecting points, right? That's where people don't if you show off you're so perfect all the time, people can't connect with you, right? You have to show that you're imperfect so that they can connect with you. And this is how that friendships are actually built, and people don't realize it and so anyhow, that's something I believe AI will fail to do. It just can't do it because you're going to be Like, you don't connect with every comedian out there, but the ones you do connect with, you feel it because you like, it's just like, man, the stories they tell is a lot like what I grew up like, or something. Oh, it's so dark in here. All right. We could just install compact fusion reactors in each town. You can look up the patent. It was made for Mars mission for Martian cities. Combine AI with a VR world, people will want to live there. Good luck developing a soul, nerds. Jeez. A whole migrant is really sad. AI is symptom of man's arrogance. I think it's very possible that we won't be able to tell the difference between AI and human-made art in a few years. AI can replicate imperfections. Yeah, I know, but that's the difference. If they start to replicate imperfections, people are not going to appreciate the imperfections that they are trying to replicate. They only replicate honest imperfections. They don't like the perfectness of people. Right? If AI tried to put an imperfection into it, it would create the most perfect imperfection. You understand what I'm trying to get at here? It's like they can't do it. There's no way. You personally will watch an artist paint something and watch AI paint the exact same image. And you will have nothing to do with AI but want to pay everything for the one that the artist did. You just think about it yourself right now. If you were sitting there watching this happen, watching AI generate the exact same picture that an artist is spending time on, when they are all done, they step away. You can hardly tell the difference. In fact, you won't be able to tell the difference between the two. I guarantee you, you will want the one that the artist actually painted and not the AI generated one. That will not change. Right? Now, there might be plenty of people out there who go like, well, I want that beautiful painting that looks just like the artist one, and I think it will hang out great at the end of the hallway. Yeah, I guarantee you there will be people out there who will pay money for the AI generated one. But the one that people really want is the one that the artist did. The only one. The one and only. And it will always be that way. And I still don't doubt that. Like, teach jobs, text jobs are for nerds. You can grow your own food and use your hands and you won't need the nerds. Yeah, art and comedy are pretty safe from AI. I think so. Well, he's right. You are seeing it now. If you try to get someone to pay for AI art, you are better looking for rain in a desert. Yeah. Okay, well, here's another one. Like, for example, um, I used an AI program to cut some of the shorts out of the videos. So I just send it a link to one of my videos and it sends me back the video all cut into shorts, reels with everything already done to it. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me, reconnecting. I've had a lot of people message me asking me to do this. Like, they want to work for me doing this exact thing. And I'm like, well, this program just knocked out, 5 videos in literally like 10 minutes, all edited, all done really well, like just about as good as I could imagine doing it myself. And I don't need anybody to do it. Now, I looked at that and I thought, man, that is a bummer. It's pretty cool, but it's a bummer, right? Because now it does take out the work of what somebody else could be doing. But I wasn't doing it anyway. So now here it is. I have this other thing that is now involved within my channel that I wasn't doing that I now do or could be doing more of, that is providing more convenience and more pleasures and more awesomeness to the channel, right? So which way do we want to look at it? Yeah, it's one, it could have been somebody else's job, but they weren't doing it anyway, so I wasn't paying anybody to do it, but now they're being done, so now there's the enjoyment of having the short videos that were cut out from an AI program that essentially eliminated somebody's possible job. But they weren't doing it anyway. So, which one is it? Yeah. All right. AI will be more powerful than you think, God like the true devil on the machine. AI is a tool. It still needs someone to wield it. What tool without a purpose? Yeah. Mostly the crappy jobs are going away first. Truck drivers, low-level coding, boring office stuff. Uh, Maybe AI will help some of these men who can't please their women. Uh, you need to listen to Rich Cooper, who was at the Robo Capitalist. That dude was awesome. Very, very, very good presentation. Basically talking about masculine behavioral traits and how to conduct yourself around women. And I think it was absolutely brilliant. I was surprised to see that kind of presentation at the Rebel Capitalist because it didn't really have anything to do with economics. But in a lot of ways it does, because men nowadays don't really necessarily act like men. They don't, they're really lost in a new movement of the way things are thought about, and it's really misguided through songs and music and TV and just stuff. Men basically have lost the ability to be men because they think that being men is somehow toxic. It's not. It's actually very good for women and men for men to behave like men. And if you're being called toxic, that's probably a good thing, right? Accept it and go with it because it's probably all right. But most people don't even understand the first step inside of it. I know that I had my experiences with it. I've been married to my wife for a very long time, and we have gone through everything. That there's nothing like, I mean, it's just like we've seen and experienced it all. And not always was it good, and not always was it easy, but man, over the years have we not we have figured out a lot. We have talked with many other couples, people who have gotten together for the weirdest reasons, busted up for the oddest reasons. And I think to myself, it ain't nothing compared to what Sarah and I have done. You know, like nothing. Like I've listened to what people broke up over, and I'm like, you guys broke up over that? We went way worse than that. Like that wasn't nothing. Anyway, okay, guys. This was a lot of fun, but I think we're probably going to have to call it quits. I think we're after 10 o'clock. Sun's almost gone now. I can just barely see any light way off in the distance over there. And what time is it? 10:30 almost? So you guys are going to love it here in a couple of, like to hear at the end of the month. All right, dude, respect for staying married. Hey, it wasn't easy, right? It wasn't easy. And it's not, it's not like, it's not like it was hard either, right? But it wasn't easy. Like most people would give up. Most people would find their own way, move on, whatever. And I do have to say, there was times where we were together where it was just like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know why we're still doing this, right? And people were like, man, like just like that, man, mad respect for that, right? Sticking it was just like, really? I mean, there was a lot of mental health deterioration taking place during those times. Like, was that worth it? Was it, well, I guess now on the other side of it, yeah. But, what if we didn't get through it? Would it have been worth it? What if we were still like, messed up? I mean, that would have been like, crap, right? How long do you have to wait before it starts getting better? It's just like, there's so many questions out there. Once you get through all these things and you get it to the other side and you're like, man, this was actually a pretty decent thing that we got going on here. I mean, I look at some what other people got going on. They don't have anything even remotely close to decent. What we got is pretty decent, and you get to appreciate that a little bit more, especially you look back and you're like, man, those were some bad times comparatively to now. These are like the best times. It's hard, right? You come to understandings. Figure out what it is that you need to position yourself in life. If you're more in the masculine energy, she can be in her feminine energy. Huh. Wow. Everybody seems to be happy when that goes down like that. Really? That's weird. What was this whole idea about being equals? We're not supposed to be equals. I'm not you. You're not me. We're not equal. We're not the same thing, right? Not even close to being the same thing. Once we understand that we're not going to be the same thing, we have different roles. We have different positions we are playing here. right? And this isn't a game. This isn't a play, right? This is the reality of the situations, but we have to take that role. Once we figure that out, once we know, well, then everything just starts lining up. It's just the way it's supposed to be, okay? You're not supposed to fight against it. You're not supposed to like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be here and you're supposed to be there. And, we got to make sure that we level off the field or whatever. No, right? It's just like there's positions. It's a position you play. All right, moving on. Okay. Red pill, whatever. Everybody red pill, whatever. This, I don't look at it like that, right? To death do us part should be taken more seriously. I don't know why the uneducated economist is not talking about this. What are you talking about? 9/11, your username does not suggest a paranoid conspiracy theorist. Nobody is talking about this. This is very serious. What is it you're talking about, man? I'm trying to find your comment, bro, but I can't. All right, the Saudi Arabia announcing that it's going to stop using petrodollars in 2 days. It's not, okay, I've already talked about that, man. It's not a big deal. There's so many debts that are due in dollars outside of the United States that the demand for dollars is going to be far beyond anything that anybody has ever and even dreamed of. They cannot do all the deals that they want in oil in their sovereign nations. There's not enough of their currency. They have to do it in dollars. Right? Because dollars is the one that's available out there. If they weren't using the dollars, they won't do it. Right? They tried using their own sovereign currencies. How well did that work out for Russia? Sitting on a bunch of rupees they couldn't use. Right? That's the same situation that all of them are going to have because nobody else has enough of any one currency in order to provide the world with enough of it in order to do the transactions. Only the dollar is filling that role. And go ahead. Let the Saudis do deals outside of it. It doesn't matter. Much respect for UE. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. All right. If Trump would be president instead of Biden, then food prices and everything else being so high, I think that would have very little difference. I think that would have very, very little difference. Do you believe there has been suppression of alternatives in energy? Oh, sure. Yeah, I believe there's been that kind of thing out there. It's suppression of, more efficient gas engines or ideas and, all that other stuff. Sure. I believe all that. But, again, at the end of it, what difference does it really make, to, I can understand, you might give us better cars or might do whatever, but it doesn't really change the underlying economic forces that are at play. Our lives might be a little bit more convenient or, something of that nature. But at the end of it, the end result of the separation between the rich and the poor due to the new money coming in and the way that new money comes in, that's not going to change. The separation is going to continue so long as the new money continues. Do you believe we'll have a woman president this year? Couldn't tell you, man. Just fired this video up, so 2 hours behind y'all. Being first thing said was, this will be a short video. I love it. You're the man, Simon. Yeah, I did try to end this, but I noticed that the lights went out in the house, so I was like, well, maybe I'll just hang out here. So, all right. But I think I am going to bail out because it is late and I'm starting to feel a little uncomfortable sitting here in this seat because it's been 2 hours and my back is starting to feel a little twisted. You guys are awesome. This has been a fun discussion. I think really looking at the lumber industry and seeing what's going on with the pulp industry, seeing all these curtailments and watching the prices not dramatically increasing to match the added increased cost going to these mills doesn't make it very profitable for them to be at this position. So here we are going into summer where you think that there would be a ramp up of production, especially when it comes to lumber. This is the building season. We are actually seeing curtailments taking place. So, all right. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know. Thank you everybody for being here. We had 300 geez, how many people we got watching right now? 301 people watching, 339 likes with $26.90 in super chats. Because you guys are always so generous with those super chats, I really appreciate all the support. Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know. Good night, UE. Yeah, good night. Good night, everybody.